Hi, everybody. Welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. We have the new Liahona for October 2025, and the apostle that wrote an article for this issue is Elder Ronald A. Rasband. The name of the article is Covenants, Power, and Promises. And I found out about this, or I didn't know it was out yet until I heard from my friend Kirtland with Anticipating Christ's Return. Make sure to subscribe to her. She's done her videos. I think she did a couple videos about it, but and I haven't watched them yet, but I'm pretty sure I have a different take. So stay with me, but make sure to subscribe to her. This article is full of things to talk about. I myself am probably going to make, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 4 videos. This article is rich with just things to think about, stuff that we talk about on this channel. So the first thing I want to point out is he starts off by telling this story about the Kirtland Temple. And we're going to read this first section and dissect it. But he talks about the Kirtland Temple. He tells this story. And when you look at a couple of the other articles in this issue, there's several others that also talk about the Kirtland Temple. You have this one from Elder Kyle S. McKay, General Authority 70. He has this picture here of the Kirtland Temple. And then as you scroll down, you got this one. It has a picture of the Nauvoo Temple. You have this one. There's the Kirtland Temple again. You scroll down. And then part of this ongoing series, Church History Art, Kirtland Temple. So for some reason, the Kirtland Temple just really shows up in this issue. And it interests me because I'm thinking about the future in these other temples that have not yet been built. So the Kirtland Temple was built, but for a very long time, it was owned by the RLDS, which later became Community of Christ. And then in 2024, that's when the deal was finalized where our church purchased the Kirtland Temple from Community of Christ. And those talks obviously had been in the works for a while. It's not like it just happened all of a sudden. And I did this exercise on this spreadsheet called Timeline Phrases. You can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video. And I wanted to kind of see, there were definitely people that knew that talks were going on. And I wonder if that kind of showed up in General Conference where you had like an uptick in talking about the Kirtland Temple. And as a matter of fact, you did. So if we just pay attention to these two columns right here, I and J, and if you're new to the channel, this is a tally of the number of General Conference talks that include these words or phrases. I use BYU's Scripture Citation Index to search these General Conference talks. So you can see in 2020, you suddenly have this uptick in talking about or using the word Kirtland or using the phrase Kirtland Temple. And then that continues, I'd say, for the next couple of years. You can see that there's darker colors right here compared to before. If we look at 2019 going back to 2007, it's just these lighter pink colors. Occasionally there's some spikes. Go back in time, and that's what it looks like. But there was, I think, a noticeable uptick, especially in 2020. And 4 years later, that's when the purchase was finalized, right? And what's interesting is we see a similar pattern with Missouri. There's also an uptick. Jackson County, you can see it right here from 2016 until 2024, far west. And so it just makes me wonder, we watch the Kirtland Temple be in the hands of another church. All this time goes by, and then finally we get it back into our possession. The Nauvoo Temple, for a long time, it was just a temple lot until President Hinckley's presidency, and then he rebuilt the Nauvoo Temple. And that time is coming for Independence, far west, Adam-ondi-Ahman. We've also recently learned about the city of Seth. And I just wonder if they're preparing us for more things. So this is kind of like how I'm looking at this article a little bit. Although this could have a dual purpose, or it may just be focused on how many temples are being constructed right now. But let's just think about it in that sense. So let me just read this first part. In May 1833, my fourth great grandfather, Asahel or Asahel Perry, and some friends traveled from northern New York to Kirtland, Ohio. They weren't members of the newly restored church, but they wanted to meet the prophet Joseph Smith. They arrived just in time to attend the first council held to discuss the building of the Kirtland Temple. After beginning the council, the prophet presented the business of building the temple. Then he called upon those present to express their feelings related to such a large undertaking. Most responded that the church was too poor to tackle such a task. They proposed construction of a smaller, less expensive building. I'm going to pause right here. Now, that's understandable. This is a brand new church. I don't know that it necessarily reflects a lack of faith. Maybe for some people it did. But they were living under difficult circumstances. And yeah, in that time period, it was a pretty big undertaking to build a temple that size. When we found out, okay, actually, no, before the Kirtland Temple was purchased in 2024, we had been looking at Community of Christ's finances, because we're going to do that again in this video. They have a portion of their website for financial updates, and they put financial statements on here and summaries and just different updates. And in the lead up to 2024, we had been watching this page because they were talking about the sale of historic assets. Up until that point, they had already sold some things to the church. Nothing like too big, but we were wondering if we were going to see the day that they would sell like the Kirtland Temple. And that day came. And as we were discussing the possibility and the worth of the Kirtland Temple, I was dismayed at some of the comments where people felt like it wouldn't be worth it, that we really shouldn't spend any money to get the Kirtland Temple back. And I was dismayed because that was the first temple in this dispensation. This is the temple where you had these Pentecostal experiences at the dedication of the temple. The dedicatory prayer is the 109th section of Doctrine and Covenants. It's where angels appeared, including the Apostle Peter. I've covered that story before on the channel. Later on, you had Christ himself, as well as Moses, Elias, and Elijah, who appeared. And specifically, the appearance of Elijah fulfilled a major prophecy, one that many are still looking forward to this day in other religions. It's not just any other temple. And even if it ever was a temple, a house of God, I think that we should spend money to get it back. And honestly, especially like when you consider the price of current temples, this is me personally, I'm not speaking for the church, but I would not have been upset if the church paid several temples worth, maybe the cost of like 5 temples just for the Kirtland Temple. It's the Kirtland Temple, And so I wonder, as we continue to get temple announcements, just regular temples, I'm thinking that they're going to announce 18 this conference, because that would make for a total of 400 total. But I don't know what the rate is going to be, when it's going to level off, or if it ever will level off. And then on top of that, I don't know. We don't know when, for example, Far West would be announced, or possibly the purchase of the temple lot, or the land and properties that Community of Christ owns, like their temple and auditorium. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So I think it'd be a mistake to have this response. Most responded that the church was too poor to tackle such a task. They proposed construction of a smaller, less expensive building. You guys, let's have faith in the Lord that nothing is impossible, and that he already has a plan. And even though something may seem risky to us, or it's like, oh, should we really be doing? Yes, Yes, we should. Yes, we should. Okay, continuing. So I think this is the attitude that we should have, whether it's temples or any other thing that the church does. During the ensuing discussion, Grandpa Perry and his friends huddled, took out their money, and remember, they weren't even members of the church. It said that earlier, and added it up. Did they have enough to pay for their return trip and contribute to the temple's construction? A few minutes later, my grandfather approached Joseph Smith, pulled out a $5 coin, and presented it to the prophet. Such a coin today would be worth hundreds of dollars. Joseph stood before the council and held up the coin. Then, speaking energetically, he said that the work had, quote, the work had commenced and the house of the Lord would be built according to the pattern presented, end quote, by the Lord Jesus Christ. Elder Rasband has a footnote at this part, and it takes you to a fascinating letter, which, like I said, I'm going to make multiple videos just based on this one article, and one of it is going to focus on this letter. There's some really good things to read in this letter, but more on that in another video. The Perry family soon joined the church in Kirtland, received their temple blessings a few years later in the Nauvoo Temple, and later crossed the plains to Utah. By the time the Kirtland Temple was dedicated in 1836, it was too small to hold all the Latter-day Saints who wanted to attend its dedication. As the church grew, so did the numbers of saints who had to attend meetings outdoors. President James E. Faust, who served as my stake president when I was young, that's interesting, when I was a young man, and as a mentor when I was called as a general authority in 2007, made this observation regarding the church's second temple. Quote, before the Nauvoo Temple was completed in 1846, the saints would meet outside, often near the temple, to hear Joseph and the other church leaders speak. Sometimes thousands attended those meetings. End quote. Sometimes even in inclement weather. Quote, as Elder George A. Smith observed in his humorous way, in the days of the prophet Joseph, the church flourished best out of doors. End quote. We are grateful that in our day, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is flourishing outdoors, indoors, and throughout the world. That flourishing includes the construction of temples at an unprecedented pace, according to the pattern presented, a pattern that has always included blessings, consecration, faith, and sacrifice. Okay, so at this point, let's go to these spreadsheets. This one is called Temples Announcements. This is a graph showing temples announced by day. So like on some specific occasions, you have multiple temples announced on the same day. Other ones are kind of spread out. Okay. And you see this really dramatic looking chart. I also have one where it's broken down by year rather than day. And this one kind of illustrates better. You have President Spencer W. Kimball's time right here. That was kind of like the first like major announcement of like multiple temples. Like a flurry of temple announcements. Okay. And then we had a couple presidencies go by. And then we have President Hinckley right here. And I remember thinking that was pretty amazing. All those temples that he announced. And then you have President Monson's time. And then you have President Nelson's time right here. And it seems like it's still going strong. And so that's the real question, isn't it? How long is this going to continue? And is it going to decrease? Have we reached a peak? Is it going to decrease? Is it going to plateau? Is it going to increase? This article that we're reading, it may have been written with the intent to help us understand the importance of temples, and that's why we need more and more and more. And not just temples in brand new locations, but also temples that were supposed to be built, like the Temple of New Jerusalem here in Independence, Missouri, the temple at Adam-ondi-Ahman, the Far West Temple, so on and so forth. But we're seeing something pretty incredible in all these temples that are being announced. It's unprecedented, and I'm just fascinated to see where this is going. But my prediction is this next general conference that there's going to be 18 announced, which will bring us to a total of 400. Okay, now let's switch to these temples that were meant to be built, which will be built in a future day here in Missouri. We have this. We're looking at my quotes A through Z spreadsheet. This is currently row 538 for City of Seth. And if you're interested to learn more about the City of Seth, I have these other quotes right here. I have a total of 4. The first time I heard about it was in church news. President Spencer W. Kimball, when he came to dedicate the Independence Stake Center, he went to like Adam-ondi-Ahman in Far West, but they also went to the City of Seth. I randomly, or maybe not so randomly, came across this article and I was like, the City of Seth? What? Well, we're going to read from this. This is President Alvin R. Dyer, counselor in the first presidency. This is from the David O. McKay diary excerpts on the University of Virginia's website for Mormon studies. Just go to the topic. There's like all these different topics. Just click on Missouri. And this is Monday, October 6th, 1969. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but he's basically talking to, a bit, well, I don't know if these are like general authorities. I can't remember. I don't want to read all this, but some of them may be church employees. Maybe some of them are like 70s. I'm not sure. But they're talking about like what needs to be done in Missouri with the purchasing of lands and, building the Independence Visitor Center. And that was his purpose. President Alvin R. Dyer's purpose, it seems, was to do all this stuff with the land here in Missouri, like purchase the land at Adam-ondi-Ahman. That happened during his time. So that's the context, and this is what he says. I explained to the brethren present that this work would need to go forward slowly, but yet methodically, to accomplish the purpose of obtaining properties in the Missouri area centered around the 4 particular areas where land had been consecrated and dedicated for the building of temples and a city of Zion. Okay, so these are 4 locations. All of them were a city of Zion or like a stake in their own right. And then, of course, you have, the city of Zion, New Jerusalem. But you basically have these temple cities, 4 of them. Okay. And he says, this included the following locations: Independence, Missouri, Jackson County. And let's do this one by one. By the way, everything I'm about to show you, this is on my Explore Church Sites channel. Please make sure to subscribe to this. And I'm finding just so many interesting things. I'm going to revisit all these sites. I'm also covering special events as they occur, which I've already witnessed several. So it's not just church sites, it's special events. I have I have all these playlists. I have one for special events. I have the different Missouri counties broken down, as well as Iowa church sites and Illinois church sites, and this is going to keep growing and growing. So please make sure to subscribe. But okay, so we got Independence, Missouri. We all know the temple lot right here, right? We're all waiting for this one to be purchased and for a temple to be built. Wouldn't it just blow you away if that's what happens, like if that's what's announced in this next general conference? Or I don't know. It's hard for me to picture exactly what that would look like, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. Maybe we'll just wake up one day and we'll see something in the church news, an official announcement from the first presidency, or maybe it's going to be announced in general conference, but it is going to happen at some point. So we have that. And while we're talking about independence, it's not just that one temple lot. I remind you for the millionth time, if we go to the Joe Smith papers, you have the revised plat of the city of Zion, and there's supposed to be 2 blocks in the middle of the city. Here's the city. Zoom out. Here's the city. The 2 blocks are supposed to be for the 24 temple complex. Okay, 24 temple complex. We learned the names of those temples on the first city plat. They basically corresponded to different offices of the priesthood. So when we're talking about the temple lot, I think it's most likely this temple right here, number 11. And then the Independence Visitor Center was built to be one of these buildings or to be renovated someday to be part of the temple complex. But it's not just that lot. We need like this whole area, which would include, you got the Community of Christ temple. There's some interesting things to consider with that. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I've witnessed them doing a lot of like fixing it up. There's been a lot of repairs and maintenance that's happened, including these stairs right here. This year before their World Conference, they tore out the old stairs and put in these new stairs. They were doing something here with like these, sorry, it's taking a while to load. There were like a ton of these tiles that were pulled up. They were doing some kind of maintenance. And then also the auditorium, from my point of view, it seems like this would also be on that temple land. This is basically their conference center. And that has also been in a continual state of repair with like scaffolding all around it and stuff like that. Okay, so we got Independence. And then he mentioned after that, we got Far West, of course, in Caldwell County. That's another big one. Let's see. Let's go over here. It's kind of harder for me to picture the purchase of the temple lot and announcing a temple there. It's not that I don't have faith, but I feel like it's like an easier thing to build the Far West temple. And could you imagine what the reaction would be? Like, say that that's announced in General Conference. I guarantee you there would be a large gasp among the congregation. But, you know, this was a temple that at least got as far as having the cornerstones laid. And there's been, it seems, significant growth in this area, including the Far West Stake, which was recently divided into 2. Now there's the Far West Stake, and then there's the Grand River Stake. Grand River getting its name from Grand River that goes through Adam-ondi-Ahman. But at some point, this is going to happen. So we just saw the Kirtland Temple come back into the church last year. What if within the next few years, what if this next General Conference, they announce the Far West Temple? I sure hope so. Okay, and then after that, Adam-ondi-Ahman in Davies County. And this is the temple site right here. It's on Spring Hill. Most people don't make their way up this way, but you can walk to it. It's a little bit of a walk, but it's right here, marker number 10. It's in the middle of Spring Hill at the highest point of the bluff. It was somewhere around here that Adam's other altar was located. And then in the tree line over there, you have all the different buildings and cabins that were part of the city that have been identified and marked. There's just historical markers there to say where they were at. And then if we go back, the last one and the fourth location being approximately on the border of Caldwell and Davies counties, Caldwell and Davies counties, in a direct line between Adam-ondi-Ahman and Far West, where the prophet had dedicated the land to be a city of the Zion of God. And when we put it all together, all these different quotes, and considering President Kimball going there back in whatever year this was, 1978, that is referring to the city of Seth. There's nothing to see there as far as I know. I think there's some people that say that they own like where the the center of the city would be. I still have to look into this more. If you know anything about the city of Seth, if you can give me access to where the center of the city would be, that'd be great. I would love to come and film it. But using the book Sacred Places, Missouri by Lamar C. Barrett, he described the approximate location if you took, I can't remember the county or the state road, but so State Road 13? I can't remember. But he tells you, go down this road X number of miles, and it's approximately in this location where I'm filming. So the city of Seth. That would be pretty amazing if that got announced. So these are the things that we have to look forward to. And that's why when I see stuff like this, this is definitely applicable to what's going on with all the temples being built, but you get all this pushback. Like, for example, whenever not so much on YouTube, but when I post like temple videos on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you always get people that come out of the woodworks and they're like, oh, couldn't you spend that money in a better way and feed the poor and help eliminate poverty? Yes, and we already do that, but our religion isn't just to feed people. Religion is more than just doing that. It's about eternal life, and anyway, I'm not going to get into that argument, but what I'm trying to illustrate is you get all this like opposition simply with building temples, something that we've been doing from the very beginning. But can you imagine, what might be said if it's announced that Far West or like, for example, the purchase of, if the church decided to purchase the Community of Christ temple, if they decided that they wanted to go that route, I'm not sure if that's what they want to do, but people might criticize that, like, oh, why do you need, that temple? What does it matter? Or something like that. Or something like this may cost more than just like a typical temple, because you already have this large structure here. And I guess we'll end with that. Let's go back to Community of Christ financial updates portion of the website. And the latest thing that they have, or at least one of the latest things, is this budget. So I guess this is it says right here, approved world mission budget for the calendar year ending December 31st, 2025. Okay, let me zoom in. Okay, so this first part is just the summary. So here's the total income, 17.1 million. Here's the total expenses, 16.6 million. And then they have a net income of about $500,000. So from my point of view, that's basically breaking even, because that's kind of a slim difference. But I don't know. I don't have very much experience when it comes to large organizations or corporations or governments or anything like that. So, but it seems to me like that's basically breaking even. After that, they break it down into the different sections, and I'm not familiar with a lot of these terms, but one thing that stuck out is you have this, like, so under this section right here, income expense details by functional area. I think that's basically saying if you take the whole church and what the church has to spend on different areas, I think that's what this is. You have this part, multi-nation mission fields, including C12, and it has the breakdown of the different areas. And for this, it's 2.3 million. For USA mission fields, it's 1.5. So we have these two 7-digit numbers. Just remember 7-digit numbers, okay? You have that. Specifically, if we look at the church outside of the US, 2.3. That's how much I guess it costs. 2.3. You come down here to the, where is it? The temple complex. And here has the total expense down here, 2.8. So just for the temple complex, it costs more for that than it does for, I guess, like all their expenses to these congregations outside of the United States. Just for the temple. Like, can you imagine that? If, like, for us, if you take downtown Salt Lake, if you take the 2 blocks, the Temple Square and the church office building block, if it cost more for that than it did for all the buildings that we have worldwide, that would be kind of mind blowing. But so you have, so that gives us maybe some perspective, and I'm not a financial expert, but to me it seems like, wow, that's kind of a lot to be paying for the temple complex. And when it says temple complex, I think that's including the auditorium, because up here they have the Herald House, and I think that's their publishing company for like church publications, I believe. But they don't have anything here for the auditorium. They do have this for historic sites, Heritage Plaza, Kirtland, which, do they still own anything over there in Kirtland? Liberty Hall, that's in Lamoni, Iowa, Nauvoo, Plano. So they don't have the auditorium listed. So I think that's what they mean by temple complex. Maybe they just kind of lump it together. But when you go through this and you look at the expenses, there aren't a whole lot of times that you come across expenses this large where it gets into 7 digits. And so I'm not going to go through this like exhaustive thing. I've done it before, but just in a nutshell, the last time that I like seriously looked at this, they were saying in a statement that they predict that everything's going to be fine. Like they're basically covered for the next 5 years until 2030, but they're going to need to find a way to get the younger generations to pay tithing and give donations. And they're probably also going to have to find other revenue streams in order to stay afloat. So they're good for 5 years, but something definitely has to change by 2030. Otherwise, they may have to find ways to not go in the negative. And it very well could be that they may not care to hold on to the temple complex. It doesn't seem to play that central of a role anymore in their church. Just based on things that I've heard, I'm not just like, guessing or speculating. That's just everything that I've heard. It seems to be the case. It's not essential for them to stay in independence or to have that as their headquarters. And the new prophet president, Stacey D. Cram, she was interviewed by the Salt Lake Tribune. I have to go back and listen to that, but I seem to remember her saying that, yeah, it's a possibility that they could sell it. They're not looking at that right now, but they could. Also, after the sale of the Kirtland Temple, they had a question answer page. And one of the questions was, does this mean that we're going to sell the temple? And the answer was not at this time. And it didn't say anything like, no, we would never do that. That's non-negotiable. We're going to do everything to hold on to it. It just simply said something to the effect of not at this time. So it is a possibility. And maybe that's up next. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see how things play out. But all I got to say to finish up is times are changing. Times are changing. We're seeing things that we've never seen before. It's just it's an amazing thing to witness. But that's going to be it for this one. I'll talk to you guys later.